Hi everybody, welcome back to 30 for 30 part 23, your Excel VBA absolute beginner course. And how are you getting on? How is it going? We've got one more week of 30 for 30. So whether you've come from absolute beginner level or whether you had some experience before, I hope you feel you've learned something and there's still a little bit more to come. Can you let me know in the chat? Can you see me and can you hear me? Before we get into the chat, and I'll say hello to everybody, let me just give you an idea of what we're going to look at today. So I was a bit disappointed yesterday. I've got to say, with the code that I wrote, yes, it worked, but it wasn't very efficient, was it? And you can go back to the end of the last stream. It couldn't quite finish on my system. I am running streaming software and things like that, so I have some legitimate excuses maybe. And I ran it today without any other software running, and it took under 10 seconds. So an acceptable amount of time for 500 rows of data. But what if we had 500 rows of data, 5,000 rows of data, 500,000 rows of data? It's going to take a very long time. So I found it unacceptable, really, the level of efficiency that we achieved there. But that's not taking away from your personal achievement if you're a beginner of having got it done. But we're getting to the end of the course, so we're going to consider issues like efficiency now. So what might some alternative approaches be? And I've had some people emailing me. Peter's sent me an email. Ian sent me an email as well. People have been emailing in alternative approaches, and that's great. And I'm loving how you're experimenting with alternative approaches. I looked at two alternative approaches. One of which I'm going to demonstrate first, which was a really good efficiency saving. And the other one we're going to build up over the course of this stream and the next stream, and it's going to allow us to learn some other cool stuff as well. So let me know in the chat, what might the alternative approaches be to getting this data transfer problem done? Let's get into the chat. Who's with us today? Going to scroll back to the top of the chat. Welcome, Jasfin. Welcome, Ian Box. Alistair is with us again. Welcome, Alistair. Anup. And Lee Williams is with us. And Klaus is with us. Klaus, another one of our members. If people have little symbols by their name, that means they're one of our members, of course. Pritam, welcome. Good to have you with us. Frank, welcome. Chow is with us. Welcome. VVIJ is with us. Adrian is with us. It's a scorching afternoon in South Wales. Very warm here in the Midlands as well. Stanislav is with us, and Stanislav says he's going to practice his language too. Very good, Stanislav. Excel language, whatever it might be. You're all welcome here. Farador is just checking in with us. Welcome, Farador. And VVIJ is with us. And thank you to the people who've said the stream is of a good quality there. So let me show you my alternative approach. Now, if you've downloaded the download file, you might have noticed there's some sneaky changes, some very small changes on the file that we worked with yesterday. And specifically, I've declared this variable at the top. And this is going to give us the range to copy into on the destination sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and put my annotation in on the destination sheet, because remember what we're doing? We're just taking data, copying it, and then going to our destination sheet and pasting it in. But that copy paste is taking a lot of time. And rather than doing a copy paste, what we're going to do is like a direct transfer. So what does this mean? Well, let's go ahead and do a little test again. Sub, of course, sub test direct. So the building block here is A equals B. Okay, so very simple. So you can say range A1 equals range B1. There we go. Let's quickly demonstrate that now. Put a value in B1. Make sure you're working along with me. Value in B1 there, back to the VBA editor, F5 key, and we can see that value being taken across. So that's not a copy paste, is it? That's different to a copy paste. The act of actually copying and pasting, that's where the inefficiency lies. That's what's taking the time. So rather than do a copy paste, can we do this kind of direct transfer? And we're familiar with this syntax, so it should be straightforward, or should it? or should it? And what's the specific difficulty going to be? Well, the difficulty is going to be defining the ranges that we're going to work with, and that's where this target range variable is going to help us. So follow along with me, and this is quite advanced stuff, guys, so I don't want people getting depressed if they can't do this. Just go back a few streams, you know, build it up step by step. But what I've done is I've defined the target range. So here we are defining range to copy into on the destination sheet. And by the destination sheet, I mean any of those sheets we create for the categories. And then you can see we've got C to F. So I'm just going to go across to the client. Let's just go to the dog sheet at the bottom. And you can see we're copying into column C to column F. So how is VBA going to understand this? Well, we've got our next row variable here. What is next row doing? Well, next row is giving us the next row on the sheet that's going to take data. So in this case, it will be row 40. So how is Excel going to understand this when it all comes together? So Excel is going to understand this as so it's going to be C and then the value. So let's say 40 and then F and the value 40 again. So when everything works through and we get value in those variables, Excel is going to understand it something like this. And then we've got a similar thing happening for our origin sheet. And let's say define range on origin sheet. Now we do have the code here. This code is from the last session. And this is the code we are using with the copy method. So this is how we were copying. This is how we were copying the data before. But we're trying not to use the copy method, of course. So my question to you now is, can you tweak this code? If you're watching on replay and you're feeling confident, try to do it yourself. So we're not going to use copy paste. We're going to use something like this. So A equals B, very simply. I'm going to go ahead and try to do it now. Now we do need dot value here. So exchanging that method for a property and then equals. So A equals B, you can see we're putting the equals in there. And then the underscore. Now the underscore is not essential. It just allows me to continue the code on a new line. So this is giving us the origin of the data. Yeah, and let's just remind ourselves here. Origin to destination. In fact, I'm doing this the wrong way around, aren't I? Yep. So let's go ahead and put the destination data in first. How are we going to define this? So what's the sheet we're going to work with? Well, that's also dynamic. So we've got target sheet here. So we can say sheets target sheet dot range. And now what's going to help us here? We've got our target range, of course. And I just explained how we've defined that. Equals. And then we do need dot value as well. And then equals. And then we can delete this. So the destination equals the origin. So this range on the target sheet, this should be target range, of course. We're going to make it equal to that range on the data sheet. Okay, just sense checking this looks reasonable enough. So let's see if we can step through and let's see if we can get this working. Now, if we do get this working, you're going to see massive efficiency improvements. Yeah, there's some good ideas in the chat. Anup saying, yeah, you could use advanced filter to do this. Yep, you could. There's a nice option to filter out the cells and then to only copy paste the filtered cells, something like dot special copy or special paste. I'm not sure what it is, but there's an option to just paste the filtered cells as well. So there's some good options for us, but this one is nice and clean and efficient. Now, it should be. if we can get it working. Right, let's go to, I'm going to put my breakpoints in. So I'm just clicking in the margin to put a breakpoint in and then click on the breakpoint again to remove it. That just means the code is going to stop when we get to that point. I'm going to go ahead and delete these values as well. We don't need these. One thing, make sure you clear the filters as well. Alt-A-T on the Windows PC. Make sure you haven't got any filters on the sheet. That's going to come in. That's going to be important later anyway when we look at the sorting. So let's go ahead. I'm going to play this code. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we've created the new sheet. I can see down at the bottom, the new sheet has been created. So that's pretty cool. And then hitting F8 now and stepping through this kind of critical parts of the code. So what happens here? And we can see our value has come in there. Let's play the code again. So it's going to go around. Yeah, make sure you delete this code, of course. So this code is doing the paste, the pasting. We're not copy pasting anymore. So we can delete this code. Hopefully everybody pointed out in the chat. Yeah, Ian pointed out in the chat. Thank you. So breakpoints in. Start on the data sheet. Play the code one more time. Okay, there's our cool dynamic code that we've just created, working with the different ranges, and the values are in there. I'm going to hit play again. That's going to loop us back round to the breakpoint. Okay, we're on the client payment sheet now, and we can see the values going in. Let's do it one more time, hitting the F8 key, and we can see the value going in there. And already just from that test, I can feel it's more efficient, and maybe you can on the stream as well, more efficient than doing that copy pasting. So let's remove the breakpoint now. Control S, save the file. And let's see how we do when we hit analyze. Analysis complete. That looked very fast. And let's look. Yeah, we've got our values in. And let's go ahead and do a quick test again. I'm going to use count if here. Let's test fuel equals count if. So the range and the criteria, control shift down arrow, comma, and then using the arrow keys on the keyboard. So not clicking around with the mouse here. Okay, we've got 149 entries for fuel. Going across to fuel here. So I'm just going to hit control shift and down, and we've got 149 entries. I can see at the bottom of Excel there. Just at the bottom down here, we can see we've got 149 entries there. So that seems to be working. And you can see how much faster it is to do this direct data transfer. And remember, you know, this is our basic idea. It's the same thing, although it looks a lot more complicated. It's the same building block. You know, don't forget our VBA building blocks here. It's the same thing. It's just with some more dynamic code. And if you go back through the last few streams, you can see how we built this up, combining the variables with the strings here to get the references, and that gives us that direct transfer. You can see how much more efficient that was. Okay, Anup saying headers. I'm not sure what you mean there, Anup, by headers. People are saying that was quick. Yeah, it's nice and efficient. I mean, that's what I've come to expect from VBA, you know, that level of slickness. So it's a bit of a reminder to me that copy pasting often doesn't work. You know, it's just not efficient enough doing that, because whenever you're asking VBA to interact directly with the spreadsheet and to perform an operation, to do a copy or a paste, that's not a very efficient thing to happen. So let me know if you got that working yourself. But we're not done yet. I've got another approach, and it's also a nice thing to be able to do in VBA. And let me know, have you ever programmed sorting in VBA? Because when I was thinking last night of different ways to do this, I thought, well, if we could sort the code by category. People are talking about the headers. What are people saying about the headers here? The headers to me look accurate on the other sheets. I thought, yeah, if we can sort by category, then rather than having to do a copy paste on each line, we could just copy paste chunks of data. And I thought it would be a really nice task to do, you know, having a button to do a sort and maybe be able to choose the column to sort by. That's a really cool thing to do. And also the position control required to select a number of rows, to select the right number of rows after we've done the sorting. That's also an opportunity for position control and to do a nice do until loop. And that means in this routine we're working on, we're going to have everything we've worked on in the 30 for 30 program if we can get a do until loop in that. So as always, you know, it's a little bit contrived. Yeah, I'm not denying that, but I'm trying to create tasks that allow us to practice everything and allow you to practice the broadest range of techniques, or at least the techniques that I know are going to really help you in the real world. Okay, so what are we going to do? Let's try this sort. I'm going to delete these values here. So, sources of code. Here we are again. And for me, sort code is a classic example of some code that is complicated. You can, of course, simplify it, and we're going to look at how you might do that. You can simplify it down to a single line. And in my reference files, I've got a single line to sort code that I've kind of built up over time, or kind of streamlined over time. But what are we going to do? We're going to have to record it using the macro recorder. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see if we can get a button in to get this sort done at the click of a button. So macro recorder, let's go to developer, record macro. Now make sure at this point, just a reminder, you don't have filters on. So I can see there's no arrows at the top here, no menus. So there's no filters on. Alt-AT puts filters on. Alt-AT on the Windows PC takes filters off. So let's go in, record the macro. And let's call this sort test. So as always, informative name for the macro. Then I'm going to select all the data, Control-Shift right, Control-Shift down. And then keyboard shortcut for sorting, Alt-ASS. Then we're going to sort by the category column. Okay, then we should be ready to rock and roll. There we go. Now you've got to remember the macro recorder is going. What have we got to remember to do? To stop the code. So go ahead, stop recording. And now we should be able to look at this, what tends to be quite elaborate sort code. So where is it? Where is recorded code? Go back to the Visual Basic Editor. And Excel usually will create a new module. So we had 2 modules in there originally. So we've got a 3rd module there, and that's the code we're going to look at. Don't worry, it looks complex. We're going to look at how to work with it. At the same time, I'm going to delete module 2. Because there's nothing in there, so no point having it in the workbook. Let's keep it lean. Right click on the module, remove module 2. You'll have the opportunity to export it. Just say no. There's no point saving this module anywhere. And that gives us gone back to 2 modules. Now, why don't we give this module a name while we're at it? Let's call this testing module. I'm just going to call it testing. And then this module we're going to call, what is in here? I think I've renamed the wrong module there, did I? Module 3, yeah. The testing module should be functionality. So I'm going to call this module 0 functionality. I can't put a name at the beginning, of course. No, DC told me yesterday. Let's just call it functionality then. There we go. Then module 3, we're going to call this testing. There we go. So functionality has the functions in, and testing we're going to use for testing. Right. So here's our sort. Here's our sort code, and we've got to think about how to get this working. So we could just play this. I mean, just try playing it first. I'm just going to click in the macro, hit the play button, you know, and it does work fine. But there's going to be some problems here. I mean, as usual, we want to add dynamic quality to the code. So any professional VBA solution is still going to work if data is added or taken away from the data set. So let's write some things down here. Let's say dynamically define range to work with. And maybe something else that's pretty sweet to do that I put in a lot of my client files is give option to choose column to sort by. And I find customers really like this because sorting data is quite clicky. You've got that box you've got to interact with. So to have a button saying, or a little drop down menu saying sort by this column and to be able to click, that's a nice addition a lot of the time. So we're looking to simplify this code and to define a range to work with. Jasfin says, so many times I've said yes and wonder why it's not deleting. Are you talking about the module there, Jasfin? Let me know what you're talking about there. 25 views today and 9 likes. Excellent stuff. So let's see if we can get started with this. Where are the hard-coded values? There's 2 areas for us to look at. The first is, this value here. So we're looking at the hard-coded values. Where are those references that we'd actually want to change to make it dynamic? So here we've got the sort range. So this is the column that we're sorting by, which is column D. So if we want to make it dynamic and give the customer the possibility of choosing a column, then that's particularly important for us. So let's say dynamically define range to work with, dynamically define now let's do this a bit simpler actually. Define range to work with whole data set. Whole data set and then to sort column. There we go. Yeah, so there's 2 areas here we want to look at, and we want to avoid doing this selection because the VBA editor has it recorded exactly what we did, and you can go back and see what I did. I selected the cell, then did the control shift down and the control shift right, and then the control shift down. But that's not the most efficient way for the code to run. We don't need Excel to be kind of doing that selection in VBA, and we've spoken before about remote versus direct referencing techniques. This is a very direct technique, and it's not going to be that efficient. So we can go ahead and delete this code. Everything else, just looking at it now, I think it looks like we're going to need it. Shift and tab just to reset the indentation there. And then let's just get some spacing here to help us understand what's going on. Okay, good. Yeah, so we kind of clear the original sort fields, if there were any. So that takes us back to nothing in terms of the sorts. And then we define the range that we want to sort by, and then we're looking to define the whole data range as well. So that's what I'll ask you to do for your homework. Can you do the above? Okay, and particularly give us option to choose column to sort by. Okay, so a couple, the main points again. So we're looking for a dynamic definition here. Yeah. So what is going to need to be dynamically defined? Well, this value here, we've got the end of the data set hard-coded in there and the end of the data set hard-coded here. So can you do that dynamically? How to do that? Well, I recommend dim something like data range as, now I would use a string variable to do this. You could use an object variable to do this. Sort range as string. There we go. I'll try to do this first. So get the dimensions of the whole data set, get those dynamically defined and into a variable, and then get the sort column, and don't worry about choosing the sort column yet. Just try to get a sort column into this variable. Okay, dimensions for whole data set, then sort range dimensions for sort column. Okay. So see if you can do that. If you can do that, then you should be able to replace this with the variable name. So it's going to look something like this. This is our sort range. So the syntax is going to look something like this. Obviously, at the moment, there's nothing in that variable. So you'll need to define range of sort range variable. Okay, then do the same for data range. Data range, giving you a bit too much help with this homework, I think. But, you know, this should put you in a position where you're able to do it. Something like this. Okay, so this should have dynamic quality, you know, assuming you've been able to use some of the powerful position control techniques we've learned. You should be able to get the right range into these variables, and then the variables are going to interact with the sort function here to get it done. So see if you can do that, and then also see, can you simplify this code? So this is all about experimentation. What happens if you just one by one just disable these lines of code? This will allow us to understand what code we actually need, allow us to simplify and have a linear approach, and allow us to only have the code we need in the file. So see if you can do that. Now that should get us to a situation where, yeah, like this, where we have each of the categories stacked up, sorted by category. Then our final approach to solving this problem is going to be to copy paste the chunks across. So copy paste this data, define that data range, and then to copy paste it across. So yeah, copy pasting is not that efficient, but if we do it this way, then we do clothes. If we do it this way, we'll be able to do it with maybe 10 copy paste operations, the number of categories, and that will probably be reasonable in terms of efficiency. So we've got to do the sort code. I've got you started with that. And then the difficult part, and I said a do until loop might help us here. See if we can loop through those values and copy paste them onto the correct sheets. Good. So let me know any final questions in the chats. Yeah, I've been blathering on a bit today. Okay. Yeah. Something we're certainly going to have to deal with is, yeah, the formatting. So that's something we'll be coming to in one of the later streams, because we don't want to be presenting this to a client. Don't want to, yeah. So, I mean, it's just got basic formatting on at the moment. So that's something we'll think about in future streams. Get that formatting sorted out. Let's see what else we've got. Any other questions in the chat? Yeah, dot current region could work as well. So Anup is saying in the chat, dot current region is going to select all of the data until you get to an empty row and an empty column. Can be useful. Dot current region, I don't use it much personally, but can be useful. Let's see. Lee says, so we've got to create a variable for the option to choose column to sort by and then answer sort the data. Is that right? Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully it's fairly clear from the kind of guidance I gave you there and my kind of conceptualization. It's like I've done the planning and conceptualization for you a bit. So on the basis of that, see if you can get it working. But the idea is, yeah, we're getting the addresses, the references into variables, and then using those variables. Now, it would be possible to bypass the variables, just put the syntax in here, but then you'd end up with a very long piece of syntax, and we want to keep it simple as far as possible. Justin says, is this code faster than A equals B? I don't think it will be. So you might be saying, why are we learning it? Well, as I said, it's going to allow us to, it's just another way to do it. It's another way to do it, and it could come in useful, and it allows us to apply a do until loop. Apply a do until loop, and that means in our routine, we would have, not this routine, in our main routine, we would have applied all of the main techniques that we've learned on the program. If we look at how to apply do until as well. Good. Yeah, Control Shift. Nice one, Gary. Control Shift and 8 to select the current region. Let's give that a go. Control Shift and 8. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, very nice shortcut there from Gary. Thank you. Control Shift and 8 to select the current region. Yeah, good. Okay, I think that's all the questions in the chat. So give it a go, guys. You know, as we go through this course, you know, it's less about following me and more about you planning, conceptualizing tasks, and then trying to do the task yourself. Because I definitely want you to be able to, you know, after this course, to be able to apply VBA to your real world situation to create value for you and the people around you, whoever you're working with, to get jobs done using Excel VBA. Okay, guys. So take care. I will see you same time, same place tomorrow. We'll be on part 24 of the 30 for 30 Excel VBA beginner course. I'll see you then, guys. Take care.